Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be doing a short little tutorial on the Columbian exchange situation, how to best extract value from it. What this is a situation that starts in the age of absolutism that will allow you to spawn new world goods or overwrite new world goods in the old world or spawn old world goods in the new world. Generally speaking, we're going to prefer to spawn new world goods for reasons we'll get into, and we will have the cost of just a little bit of prestige and even a smaller amount of ducats in terms of what that is going to be valued towards you. You have restrictions based on what region you can spawn these goods in, as well as topographical, climate, and vegetative restrictions. You can't spawn them anywhere, so you will have to kind of build around this, or this will inform your overall strategy. But the main idea is you want to either be utilizing this to gain value in terms of economic ducats, just money, or value in terms of a greater and higher level of food production. In particular for us in this run, it allows us to offset the Little Ice Age food penalties quite nicely. So, it is worth noting that probably the best way to get prestige right now is to humiliate people in wars, and by doing a bunch of humiliations, if you have a war that has a lot of participants on members that are just kind of not important, you don't need the war score on them, by doing this you will be able to spread more goods. But, that being said, there's kind of two reasons why you want to spread the goods: for food and for making money. And for making money, the way that we are evaluating the goods is going to be based on the price, or the base price, and also the transportation cost. Base price will mean that we will have bigger margins on trades, generally speaking, and also bigger contributions to the tax base, and a transport cost is going to mean that it takes less trade capacity to move the good. Notably, Chile has a transport cost of 0.5, and it has a base price of 5. So overwhelmingly, Chile will be the preferred good to be spreading around because it is going to be very, very lucrative from a tax-based perspective because of high base price, but also it's going to be easier to trade around and move around to gain money here. Now, the tobacco might initially just look like a really bad good, and why would we build this good? Well, the thing is once you saturate the demand, or once you saturate supply for the various pops, then the price is going to come down. So even though it only has a base price of 3, and the transport cost is relatively high, in the Carthage market, we have Chile actually has a price of 4 because we are producing quite a bit of it, and we are also exporting quite a bit of it. You can see we are exporting all over the place. If we look at tobacco prices, you can see that the price is way higher. So if we were to add a marginal good to the Carthage market, tobacco would probably be better than Chile, or you can make an argument one way or the other. There's also a very important thing regarding demand, which is how pops create demand in the first place. In order to create demand for a good, the pops need to see the production of the goods, or the country that owns the market, I believe it's the country that owns the market, needs to see the goods being produced on the map. Now, a lot of countries do not see the New World because they do not have map spread of the New World, and so they are unaware of the production of Chile when this situation initially pops. One of the values that you get by creating and moving the New World goods to the Old World is that you will make visible to a lot of these other nations the goods, which will create demand for them. And so if we take a look at, for example, the Krakow market, I'm pretty sure that Poland has not discovered the New World here because they're landlocked, or they're almost landlocked. Maybe they've discovered it, but the point is that Poland has demand for Chile. Everyone has demand for Chile because we have spread Chile far and wide, and so what this creates is opportunities for value from trade as well. People that did not previously demand Chile are now demanding Chile. You expand out the demand for Chile, so even if you are not producing an enormous amount of Chile from the Columbian exchange, if you have colonies that produce Chile, you will get more profitable opportunities for trades because there will be more aggregate demand, and you can satisfy that demand with trade. And so this is a very important thing to note, that the creation of these goods in the New World is going to create demand for them. There's one kind of, I think it's bugged right now. I've been told that you have to see at least 50 production total, but it seems like this doesn't work for the maize properly right now. And that maize is not properly creating demand, and the only demand we have for maize is going to be from the brewery. Notably, this kind of creates a twofold situation here. You can see that we're actually even exporting it, what appears to back to the old world, which is kind of funky. And so this means that if you want to protect the food supply, maize is worth building because you will generally not trade it away, or your country will not like trading it away very much because there won't be a lot of demand nearby. Or if you want to create demand and you want it to have a higher base price, you plant potatoes instead, insofar as it relates to making money and creating demand. Now, if you are spreading it for food, it's actually not too big a choice in terms of the New World goods, because what you care about here is how much food is being produced, which you are going to look to stack with percentage modifiers. And maize and potatoes, there's the same amount of food there. However, if you are spreading goods to the New World, which is generally not preferred, you will care about the food source quite a bit, because, for example, rice is going to have 10 food available, and something like olives will have base food of 4 or 5. You can see it's 4. It might make sense to spread cattle because it does get used as PMs in some buildings, so it's a little bit more profitable, has a base price of 1.5. But for the most part, you will care about the food that is getting spread in the New World. Of the New World goods, or of the Old World goods going to the New World, some standouts are going to be coffee, cotton, and sugar, but a big part of why you don't want to spread them is because they tend to be a little bit less efficient per prestige in terms of the spread. So the main reason we want to be spreading in the old world is because of the RGO levels. The main driver of what your max RGO level is going to be is based on population and development, and because you get one entire switchover per click per 5 prestige, you would prefer to switch over in places that have high RGO max levels, on top of the fact that you are going to be getting the tax base in your locations, and so you would prefer to do it in locations you own. But this is driven largely by population and development, and you tend to have a lot more population, right, and development within the old world. You can see we have 92 dev here, and while there are some bright spots, or there tend to be in colonies, especially if you have them as OPM, because they tend to use developed province if they don't have a lot of locations, they will still not be able to have an enormous amount. And so you can see here 8 versus 26, we are getting 3 times as many new RGO levels filled per level with the Naples than we are here, and so it's a much more efficient click to be taking. Beyond the fact that we will be gaining access to the tax base. I do think one thing that is worth noting, though, is that you can build plantations in the New World, and so this will be a slight point of emphasis, but currently the plantations are bugged, and so you can't get full value out of them, but this is a reason to spread tobacco, let's say, to the New World, is that you can leverage the plantation, and so though you might get fewer levels of the RGO in the New World, the fact that you can build a bunch of plantations is valuable, but currently colonies turn off the plantations, and there's not too much recourse there unless you own the locations yourselves and do this type of thing. But this would be a way that you could manage around it, and would be a reason to put stuff in the New World. But then if you're putting stuff in the New World, it's probably going to exclusively be these 3 plantation type buildings, because otherwise you would still prefer the old world for your ability to override as many levels as possible. And you can see this means you are going to generally prefer rural areas, because the plus 100% max RGO level to override, and you're going to prefer levels with, or locations with, high dev and pop as well. And one of the important notes in terms of what is driving the dev is going to be your topography and your vegetation. In particular, farmlands drives up a development. Farmlands also does give plus 10% RGO level as well, and so the farmlands can be particularly good, but the farmlands are pressured in multiple directions because you kind of do want cities on them. But the idea is that stuff like mountains, where you get this massive RGO or massive dev kind of penalty, as well as a massive penalty to your max pop size, are probably going to be worse locations to choose for your places to override with the new good that you're bringing from the New World. Alright, so beyond just wanting a high max RGO level, where else do we want to build over? And the answer is somewhat straightforward. We do want to build over bad RGOs. So in particular, if we had unlimited prestige, which we don't in this market, we want to replace a lot more of these wines, because wine has a really low price currently. We're not making a lot of money for it. It's not an input good or it's not an input good in too many industries. I do think it gets used in a couple of industries. Yeah, distill wine. But overall, it's generally a consumer good, and it's cheap right now, so we would prefer to replace it as much as possible with stuff like chili and tobacco and the like. Beyond that, you will want to kind of replace RGOs that aren't very good because they're food RGOs that don't produce that much food, this type of thing. But something that is worth noting, if you are building one of the food RGOs or you're spreading one of these, you really care about having access to irrigation, which is going to act as a force multiplier for you. So we don't have the river map mode because it has been bricked, but this is on a river, and this allows it to have irrigation, and so you will have extra local food production, and so this force multiplier is going to allow the potatoes to be a lot more effective at providing us food, and so this is going to be very important. If you are spreading the RGOs for food, you do want them to be on a river, or like this location next to a lake. If you can keep it rural, this is also preferable because you will have access to the farming village, which will give you extra local food production percentage. Something that is worth noting, though, is if you want farming villages, before you override a food RGO, this chili was previously olives, I believe. Before you override it, you can actually build as many farming villages as you like, and they will stay. The farming village requires that we have a food production, or one of many food production buildings, which we no longer, or food production RGOs. You can see here is the list of all the RGOs that will satisfy this, of which one of these is olives. But this is a chili, so we can't build any more farming villages here, but if we build the farming villages before we spread the RGO, then you will be able to make use of the farming village. Now, this can be used to great effect with some countries that have some very nice buildings in some contexts. Let's take a look. So, as Russia here, we have this building, the Pomor Outpost, which in particular is going to give raw materials output plus 33%, which is absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, you can only build it on top of places that are fur or fish. But you can build a whole bunch of these. It does allow multiple levels, and then override it with an RGO from the Columbian Exchange. And by doing this, you can get chili with like plus 300% production. And it's obscene and will probably get patched. But any building that affects RGO levels that requires a specific RGO to be in place, you will be able to do this with. I don't know if there are other countries you can do this with, but it's going to be kind of the same effect where you can build the farming village and then break your ability to build it, but still have the farming villages. Will also work with buildings like the Pomor Outpost here for Russia. I don't have an example of it, but Mr. Ovi Lake on Reddit did post a Pomor Outpost. You can see he has 15 of them. He has 19 chili here, and he has a tax base of 242 off the back of basically entirely that chili. Alright, another thing worth noting is if you are getting a pretty big tax base as a result of the chili, or whatever it is you are producing, which we are here of nearly 40, that you will be caring quite a bit about market access as well. We have 97 market access here, and we have a whole ton of peasants, and so with the new market villages that give market access on these cash crop goods or any really valuable RGO, it's probably worth building enough of these, even if you don't really like the market village this late in the game, which I think it's kind of fallen off at this point. Building it for the extra market access so that you get more money from these RGOs is definitely going to be something that's worth considering, especially since you are targeting these high pop locations, which otherwise you would probably prefer to urbanize in terms of locations that look pretty good to be replacing here. So we have so far replaced 25 total goods. Our subjects haven't replaced any goods. Supposedly on this patch, the subjects everyone is supposed to be a little bit more aggressive with the Columbian Exchange. So we might see a little bit of different stuff from the AI and be playing around that. If the AI starts using the Columbian Exchange more, notably you will want to use it on your own territory more frequently and less on their territory, and you already kind of don't like it. In particular, we've been putting at least one chili in all of our major markets to satisfy the local demand before, starting to move on to other markets. Done a similar thing for tobacco, but then we have been overbuilding the chili for two reasons. One, it's just the better good. And then two, we can export it, and we're really good for trade. So all other things equal, we're probably, as a merchant republic, starting out as Venice, going to end up installing more chili relative to tobacco, relative to what might be ideal for other countries. For the foodstuffs, we have been using this actually really frequently to try and combat the Little Ice Age, to take some of our markets that were starving into not being starving, and this has been very, very effective for this. Once we noticed that the maize wasn't really creating any local demand, or there was no demand for maize, we stopped building it and we switched entirely to potatoes. Indeed, the maize wasn't meant for us, and so we will kind of look through some of these. In particular, market capitals like Venice here are going to tend to get really high population because they have a lot of pop attraction. So even if they are urbanized, they will often get really high potential levels, and so that's why we built the chili here. We see another chili in the Venice market in particular. This was a pretty weak RGO. It was a nice build over, so kind of happy to see it. I think it might have been a wine. You do see the potatoes here, the potatoes on a lake, so that they will supply more food. Probably not the best build because honestly there's a ton of food in this market, but okay, we did want to kind of create a little bit more potatoes here because potatoes were getting imported from the Carthage market into Venice, quite a few potatoes, and we didn't like that. And so by creating local potato demand in markets surrounding the one where we are having food problems, because we are having food problems, we make it so that they are less likely to export their potatoes. And so that was kind of the logic. I think it was fine. We replaced the fiber crops on this one. I don't think we did too much in this Geneva market here, but coming on down, largely because we don't actually own that many locations here. But cutting down into the Naples market, you could see several chilies here. We have a chili here that replaced a weak RGO, was one of the primary reasons here, although it does have 17 levels. And then we have the market capital here, still urban, getting the tobacco. Notably, if you are going to have a crop that is going to be more contributing to the tax base than is going to be meant for export, and so you can see here the chili is probably going to have a lower price than the tobacco. You can see chili is 3.4, tobacco is going to be 3.01, so the chili is actually even more expensive. But the point we were going to make is that the chili, all other things equal, if you're going to flood the zone super hard on chili, and you have an urban location that you are going to upgrade to a cash crop, it can make more sense to upgrade the urban location because the burger split of the tax base will be higher. And so in theory, which one you are creating more for a tax base reason, which would be the tobacco, versus a trade reason, which would be the chili, you could prefer to have if you're going to have 2 to 3 rural locations versus 1 urban location, making the urban location the tobacco versus the chili would make a little bit of sense because you're caring a little bit more about the tax base, although that is kind of relatively marginal. You can see we added a chili in here. This is in the Carthage market, and the Carthage market really features a lot of foodstuffs. In particular, this one is adjacent to a lake, so we can build irrigation. That one's going to be quite valuable for us, but we can't or could not build a lot of foodstuffs down here. This is just a completely bricked zone. I'm not entirely sure why it is. I think it's because it's all sparse down here. And so this is quite unfortunate because this is where a lot of our water zones are. And so we have tolerated stuff like the maize and potatoes here, not adjacent to lakes, not getting access to the irrigation. A little bit unfortunate. We are going to be able to stack force multipliers in from the farming villages here. So that's going to be at least something. And then coming over here, you can see maize is going to be next to a lake here. That's why we have selected this location. Some good things to replace for us are going to be like the olives, the fish, this type of stuff. I do think we have 1 chili in here. In particular, this is in a rather nice province. If you want to start thinking ahead for this type of thing, it's in a really big province that I think that maybe dev province was used on at some point in time because this is going to have really high dev. I do believe there was an OPM here that was a subject of ours for quite an extended period of time, and so it is going to allow quite a few levels here, and so that's going to be pretty useful to us. Also, something that's worth noting is proximity to the market capital for the cash crops, all other things equal, is going to be pretty nice. if you're going to be having RGOs that are just not very valuable to you, they're just providing food, like livestock, or input goods like lumber, these types of things, not going to have a very high price. You prefer them at the periphery of your market. And if you are going to have cash crops, you'd prefer them more central into your market. And so, other things, all things equal, building these RGOs closer to your market center is going to make quite a bit of sense. And then, just like mints, and then you will want to add market centers in order to probably get yourself up to a higher level of market access. I do believe we have also been having food problems in the Byzantium market or the Constantinople market. You can see here food problems, and so we have been hard at work at trying to add some of these things here. The maize and the potatoes both are on a river here. Can't show it because the river map mode's bricked, but this is going to allow us to get irrigation in these locations, and they don't have that many pops, so we can't really make too good a use of them just yet. But once this maize fully saturates, we build up more irrigation. In particular, irrigation requires way less employment than the farming village, so other things equal, the irrigation is going to be considerably better. This will start producing a whole lot of food in these locations. And also, the profit per level is not too bad on the potatoes. Potatoes aren't exactly cheap here, and so this is also something that's pretty nice, is the first food RGO is actually going to produce decent value if there is demand for it. And so making one potato in a lot of these locations is going to be somewhat valuable. Something that is maybe worth pointing out is that if there is no grain of a particular kind in your market, this will brick a demand for it. You can see there's no demand for rice here in the Napoli market. And this kind of opens up perhaps a new strategy, which is that if you want to get rid of demand for a particular food, grain, you could build over every single one of them. And this would kill demand for the grain to some extent. It doesn't seem to have killed demand for potatoes in terms of exports to other markets. So I'm not sure all the requirements. I think that this might be... I think that this change where the grains were no longer creating demand in other things, I think this might be part of why the maize doesn't create demands in other markets, but in particular the maize doesn't even create demand in markets where it is present like other grains will. But if we take a look at the rice, there is in Geneva, there is going to be some amount of rice, and so Geneva actually has demand for rice because rice is present there, but in other markets where it's not present, it's not going to be a thing. And so building over all the rice we could do if we wanted to kill demand for rice in the market. I don't think we want to do that. Rice is really efficient, but maybe we want to do with that with the legumes, because you can see there's one legume in Geneva market. And if there's one legume, then there will be demand for legumes, but we could get rid of this demand for legumes if we so pleased by overriding all of them. You can see we are getting quite a bit of, it looks like we're getting it from 3 locations, Marseille, here and here. But if all of these were out of the market, we could build over them with our spreading a new world good and get rid of the demand for these things. I do think it's worth taking a look at the trades and just emphasizing again that the Chile is just going to give you way more trade value. And so if you are going to already satisfy or fully satisfy the demand of something, if you're going to start overbuilding anything, Chile is going to be the preferable thing until the value of these trades starts coming down a lot and like tobacco starts performing a little bit better. We would not add a second tobacco to the Chile market. We would be replacing wines probably, or sorry, to the Chile market, to the Napoli market. We'd probably replace a bunch of wines with Chile before adding a second tobacco here. But the first tobacco is really nice because it is going to satisfy the local demand for tobacco. So, but taking a look at this, you do see that it is going to be a bigger portion of our higher capacity, and we also have the Alexandria market, which is trading, I wouldn't say a ton of this, but all of our really high-value trades are going to be Chile, and they're going to a bunch of different places, and these are a bunch of markets that did not previously have demand for Chile until we had undergone this situation, and in particular in Alexandria, we have some really, really juicy spots for the Chile. We have 27 here in an urban location, which is going to be the market capital. It has a bunch of pops. It has like 500,000 pops, and it is also going to be a farmland over here. This is rural level 36, and so going having to choose between something like this and building one overseas for 5 levels, it's pretty obvious that the better locations are going to be these. And eventually, if we get enough prestige, we will start upgrading some of these lower locations, and we will put in maybe some tobacco with plantations in New World locations, because I do think you could spread the tobacco to some New World places. And then we would also eventually put cocoa down south of the Sahara and some coffee and these types of things. But for the most part, for a lot of our at least initial salvo and for quite a bit of time, we are going to be more concerned with bringing Chile kind of to our more local markets rather than to our colonial markets. And notably, the moving of Chile, a bunch of Chile here, is also going to represent a little bit of a shift in our relationship with the colonies, because this is going to make all of our trades that are moving Chile from the New World, it's going to make them a lot worse, because these juicy price differentials are going to get collapsed by the influx of Chile, and so this will kind of make this make them a lot weaker in terms of the value that they are providing us by virtue of sending us a bunch of Chile. Taking a little bit of a closer look at this, it's probably the arid and cold arid that is breaking our ability to put any New World goods in these kind of southernmost locations where we would love to put potatoes. In particular, the coffee or the cocoa requires tropical, or that seems to be the requirement, but you will be able to notice these patterns once you try and put these things down. You can see can't do it in the non-tropical areas up here, which are arid, and the tropicals do get unlocked, at least for all of our subjects. But with that said, that has been our tutorial on the Columbian Exchange. I do think there are maybe some kind of little things that are idiosyncrasies or bugs or this type of thing that are maybe worth noting. Like, if we didn't mention this before, the journal entry, or sorry, the situation has notes for pepper, cloves, and also the saffron, but these are considered old world goods, so they don't end up appearing in the kind of ability to spread via Columbian Exchange, but they do get mentioned in the situation in the game files. I'm not sure exactly what that's about, if there's supposed to be some sort of way and it's not working as designed, or if they had the ability to spread these things but then they took them out. But in particular, if any of those goods are spreadable, they will be just as valuable as the Chile, and spreading them will be extremely valuable. And to some extent, if there was a spice that you could spread to the New World, which there's not, that would make it a lot more attractive because of the advantages that a good that has lower kind of transport cost has, especially if you have advantages in your nation for trade, which we do in this particular run. But I hope you enjoyed this kind of tutorial. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, YouTube algorithm stuff, etc., etc. And other than that, have a good one. Bye-bye now.